Hey folks, what's up? It's Adam here, aka the Cena Guy. Right, we're here to review a film which is not in the horror category. I know I mainly review horror movies and all that kind of shit because that's the main, the main theme that I like about horror movies. It's just the horrors itself, but we're going from different from that now. We're talking about a movie that my late mother loved, and a film I loved growing up because Robin Williams was by far one of my most favourite actors growing up. Every time there was a movie with Robin Williams in it, I always went to the cinema to see it, whether it was Flubber. Remember getting the VHS videos of things like Hook, Jack, by Sentinel Man. There's so many titles with Robin Williams in, and I've loved them all. There's just something about Robin Williams that just brings joy and laughter to the world, and I miss him. It's a shame that he's no longer with us. And even watching some of his videos, what you see on some of his films today, it's nice to see him at the same time, but also it's sad thinking, why did he do that? So unnecessary, but sad things happen in this world. But the film that I want to talk about today that stars Robin Williams and also Sally Field is this movie right here, Mrs. Doubtfire, which I own on Blu-ray. Originally I owned it on VHS, then DVD. I got rid of those and eventually got it on Blu-ray. It's a nice film to see on Blu-ray as well. It's got some special features. Deleted, extended and alternative scenes, production office, from Man to Mrs. The Evolution of Mrs. Doubtfire. We've got photo galleries, behind the scenes, trailers, makeup tests. So basically it does go behind the scenes of Mrs. Doubtfire, showing you how the film was made, and there's like interviews with Robin Williams, Columbus, and all those other types of actors. Yeah, Chris Columbus, who was the director. So you get many interviews by people who worked on this movie. Now, before I watched this movie, it was my mother that showed me this movie. And I remember saying to me at the time, "Miss Adam, have you ever seen the film that Robin Williams starred in, Mrs. Doubtfire?" I went, "No." She said, "Adam," he says, "you've got to watch it. It's a scream. You'll have you in stitches." My mother adored this movie. I think she saw this movie countless times. This movie was like released in what year? 1993. In fact, its official release date was November 24th of 1993. It was distributed by 20th Century Fox, and I already mentioned the director, Chris Columbus. Produced also by Robin Williams, Marsha Grace Williams, and Mark Radcliffe. Sally Field, she's been in loads of roles, who plays Miranda Hillard, the divorced wife of Robin Williams in this movie. Sally Field played a memorable part in this one particular film that I grew up in my childhood, which was Homeward Bound. She did the voice of Sassy, the Himalayan cat. We've also got Pierce Brosnan as well in this movie, who was one of my favourite James Bonds. Things like GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough, Tomorrow Never Dies, those roles of James Bond. Now, this movie, when I saw this movie for the first time, my mother watched it with me, laughing her head off as usual. So that's one good fond memory I've got of this movie. To see my mum laugh. She did like this movie. It wasn't a favourite movie, but at the same time, it was one of those movies where she could watch over and over again and still laugh hysterically to this very day. And I miss my mother. God bless her soul. But basically what this movie is about. It opens up with this introduction where Robin Williams' character, Daniel Hillard, is doing a voiceover role for this cartoon, for this film company. He gets into disagreements with the director about the whole fact that the character is smoking and all that palaver, and he ends up walking out from his job due to disagreements with what he believes in with his movie roles and things like that. It introduces Daniel Hillard's kids, the three kids. The youngest one's Mara Wilson, who plays Natty. She's been in memorable roles as well. Matilda, she was in Matilda. I liked her in Matilda. She retired from acting after a few more films after that, which is a shame because I thought she was a good little child actress. And the other two child actors were fine as well. The boy, Chris, the older sister, Lydia. Great roles. They did great jobs in their roles. They couldn't have had better actors to play the roles. They were fine. They weren't annoying. They were just typical kids who loved their father In fact, they loved him so much they always wanted to be around him all the time, because there's a scene at the start of the movie where it's Chris's birthday and he throws this big wild party for him. They invite all the kids round from the neighbourhood, zoo, all these wild animals, and he does this over-the-top wild party, which causes the house to get wrecked and all that shit. You know, Sally Field's character, you know, gets a phone call from one of the neighbours, and when she returns home, she finds the place wrecked, which results her and her husband having this massive argument. And during the argument, she says she wants a divorce. So this movie, it has its comedy moments, but it also has its emotional moments. You know, any kid who's had who's had divorced parents knows what I'm talking about. You can see the emotions in the face of sadness and this tension, family now that it's coming apart. So Daniel goes to stay with his brothers and his brother's boyfriend, who's like a makeup artist who does masks and all that kind of stuff. And the divorce gets underway. The wife basically gets full custody of the children. He's got visitation rights every Saturday, but can have more time with the children unless he proves that he can create a suitable home, get a proper full-time job to prove to the judge that he can look after his kids. You know, while all this is happening on, Miranda Hillard, Sally Field's character, advertises for a nanny because she wants somebody to look after the kids before she comes home from work. Robin Williams' character sees this as a perfect opportunity to see more of his kids, so he gets his brother to disguise himself as the nanny, which is called Mrs. Doubtfire, and he applies for the job and he gets it. So he begins to fool people with his disguise, his voice, and this is where Robin Williams is so naturally gifted. You know, just goes to show he can play any role. Even a woman, a 65-year-old woman who looks like a nanny, walks like a nanny, you know. The scenes in the film where she's strict, you know, she gets them to do housework unless they do their homework. So she's trying to make an impression with Miranda that she's looking after the kids well. But again, there's a scene where she makes a mess of the meal, and she orders like a Chinese takeaway or something, and to try and seek the approval and all that shit. Even when she goes for the interview before she gets the job, you know, Miranda's like, you remind me of someone, I feel like I've known you for years. And even at that time, he still does a good job of disguising himself, trying to put on this act to make it look as though he's a total stranger. The use of comedy in this film never fails to impress me because, like I say, I've watched it back in the day, and I've watched Mrs. Doubtfire not too long ago. And even the scene where he's like in his apartment, his messy apartment, and that woman comes along to inspect the apartment. He's probably just trying to be two people, himself and the nanny, you know. Scene where his mask flies off and the truck runs over it. Oh shit! And trying to make tea at the same time. You're thinking, how can one actor do all this stuff? But again, it just goes to show what kind of a masterpiece of an actor Robin Williams can be. He can be in two places at once. He can play any part, do any voiceover. And when I say voiceovers, that means voice acting. Like when he did the voiceover of the genie in Aladdin, he was classic at that. He's good at showing like emotions, comedy, seriousness, and just naturally being himself, and it works every time. I mean, throughout the whole movie, we learn that, you know, he's doing everything he can, like trying to raise the kids, cook them food, and spending time with them, trying to be a good nanny. Around this time, Sally Field's character falls for Pierce Brosnan's character, you know, who's now trying to move in even on the family. Of course, Robin Williams' character has like a major dislike for Pierce Brosnan, even though he's done like nothing wrong. He's just like the new fella to the family. I suppose the worst thing he ever done was at the water theme park, where he says that the guy's a loser, which results in Mrs. Doubtfire throwing fruit at his head. So I think that's the only worst thing he's ever done, by insulting Robin Williams' character by saying he's a loser. But other than that, he's been like a good so-called like stepfather, you know, buying Sally Field's character, you know, jewellery for birthdays, taking her out for dinner, being good with the kids, spending time with them. So he's not like a villain, and he's not like a disastrous character, like an arsehole character. He's just a normal guy who's just trying to win love with Sally Field's character and being good with the kids, and you don't get that many. You don't get that many actors who do that, so I had nothing wrong with Pierce Brosnan's character. You know, Stu, he was cool in this movie. I loved him in James Bond and all that kind of stuff, and some of the memorable roles he's done throughout his career. But I did like him a lot in this movie. Again, I'd say the best part of the movie would have to be the restaurant scene where they go out for, Miranda's birthday. And again, he's trying to be in two places at once. He's trying to play the nanny, Mrs. Doubtfire, and he's trying to play also Daniel Hill at the same time at this job interview, because he got an opportunity to have this good full-time job as a voice actor. And so he's like in an interview and at a dinner party at the same time, and he keeps on running back and forth to the bathroom and getting changed, getting unchanged, trying to be in two places at once. I mean, throughout the night he's getting drunk on whiskey, and he ends up getting mixed up between the two people, and Stu chokes because he's allergic to pepper, and Rob Williams was putting fucking pepper on his food to get back at him, and the mask comes off while he's trying to, do first aid on him, and fucking hilarious scenes. I say it's got great choice of comedy in this movie. I mean, from start to finish. If you think like at the start of the movie where Robin Williams was like saying like he does voices and he's doing them voiceover, and Nancy and I still look at the other half of my head. Perky pig, piss off, Lou. And he's just doing all these voice characters, and he's just being a natural. That's one of the reasons why I think Robin Williams is an outstanding actor. He was definitely one of the best. Like I said, I loved him in this movie, I loved him in Flubber, Hook, Jack, Bicentennial Man. He's just been in so many memorable, lovable roles, Robin Williams. I just really wish he was still here today, because he still had a lot left to offer. He could have been in more outstanding roles. I loved him in Jumanji as well. That's another classic. He was definitely one of my favourite actors growing up as a kid. There's so many outstanding roles which he'll go down for in history as just like being one of the all-time greats, in my opinion. I mean, a part of me was thinking in this movie with the ending that Robin Williams' character Daniel was going to get back with Sally Field's character Miranda. I thought that was going to be the case, but obviously no, they get the divorce finalised. Miranda and Daniel come to an agreement where he can see more of the kids. Because in a way he convinces her that he wants to be a good father, spend much time with them as possible, and they come to an agreement for the kids' sake for them to see both members of the parents, on a full-time basis, and that's exactly what happens. So it was like a good ending in some sort of way. I thought the characters were going to get back together, but that wasn't the case. It all turns out well for the Mrs. Doubtfire character, because she ends up becoming like a host on television for kids shows and things like that. So it was a satisfying ending in all different ways. But again, character-wise, every character, I thought every actor did a good job. Pierce Bronson, Sally Field, Maura Wilson, Robin Williams, and many other characters in this movie. They all did great jobs. They put the heart and soul into their characters. Robin Williams was just a pure natural, and for him to be like trying to be two people at the same time, trying to be in two places at the same time and all that shit was just really fucking hilarious. Just little things like the scene where she's like drinking the wine at the table and the false teeth fall in the fucking wine, all that kind of stuff. It's just pure legendary moments. I mean, would I say this movie is still as funny as it was when I first saw it? Probably not, but with that being said, I'm not insulting the film in any type of way. I'd still purely say that this movie still has its laughs, even though we're in the year 2020 now, and this movie came out in the early 90s. The classic never dies. That's even a phrase said in this movie. Mrs. Doubtfire said the classic never dies, and I agree with that phrase. I mean, there was rumours going around that I was going to make a Mrs. Doubtfire 2, and I'm thinking, seriously? What would be the fucking point in that, There's no need to make a Mrs. Doubtfire 2, because the character basically served its purpose in the movie. The character stood for something. What possible reason would they make the Mrs. Doubtfire character be or do in a sequel? What could it possibly do? I mean, they kept on making all these scripts about for a sequel, and Robin Williams kept on saying he didn't like the scripts. There's no reason to make a sequel, and he said he's not going to do it unless it's done right. And in this case, with Mrs. Doubtfire character, you can't have her in a sequel. Be nice to use her like as a character in different projects, I suppose, in a certain way, like commercials and things like that. But for it to be a definite sequel, a die-hard sequel, it's just not going to happen. You know, I mean, for what I read on the internet, the latest best idea that was a sequel was that the eldest daughter, Nydia, was going to college, and she moved away. Robin Williams' character Daniel had the idea that she was going to get up to no good. He wants to make sure she passed her college exams, but at the same time, she's like in this lovesick phase with this young lad, and he's going to follow her to a college and dress up as the nanny so he can keep an eye on her. You know, apparently that was the script, and even Robin Williams did decline that. They just said the script just did not work, and I'm kind of glad they didn't make a Mrs. Doubtfire 2. If it can't be done, you don't fucking do it. You know, the character's purpose was served in the first movie. Why would they make a sequel and ruin it like that? But there you have it. Apparently, a sequel was in production of some sort, but they, out of respect to Robin Williams' passing, they just left it alone, and that was the best decision they ever made. So overall, this was like a fantastic movie. People say it was got to be one of Robin Williams' most finest performances, if not the best performance. Out of all the characters he's played, people have voted that Mrs. Doubtfire is definitely going to be one of the most lovable, favourable characters, and I find it hard to disagree with it on that account. So, yeah, great film overall. Nothing to be disappointed about. It's all there. So, please like, rate, and comment this, everybody, and email if you've got any questions. Thanks, everyone. Peace out. Thanks for watching.